Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My father, late 50s, left my mom when I, 20 male, was 3, and my sister was a newborn baby. Mom had many mental health problems after this, and we were instead raised by our grandpa, Dad's dad, and Grandma until her passing when I was 7. Grandpa died last year, and I took over as legal guardian for my sister. Grandpa had nothing to do with my deadbeat father, although he was aware the deadbeat had married and fathered other children in the last 5 years. But it changed nothing for him, because he did not look too kindly on a man who would abandon 2 children the way my father did. He literally left the country to evade child support and refused contact with his family for years. He also emptied out all the money he and my mom had before he left us, so he left us with literally nothing. When Grandpa drew up his will, he looked at how he could leave my father with nothing, but that wasn't an option. However, he didn't need to leave him with more than a single dollar, and that's what he did, and the portion that would have been my father's was divided between my sister and me. He also left the house to my sister and me. My estranged father attempted to fight the will and get the share my sister and I own, but he was denied because my grandfather did everything above board. My father's siblings ended up back in contact with him after Grandpa died, and while they're not close like before, they have a relationship that my sister and I have no interest in being a part of. So where the moral question comes in is this. My father has a child who has a life-limiting medical condition. He and his wife are struggling to keep their heads above water with 4 young kids and not a lot of money. He feels I should give him my share of the inheritance for the sake of the kids, believing Grandpa was wrong not to think of them at all in his will. He left nothing to my deadbeat's other children. I told him he wasn't getting anything from me, and then my father's siblings got involved, and they feel I should give him my share, and that having the house and my sister having the money should be good enough. But I could do it as an act of kindness for other siblings I refuse to meet or get to know. I've been under some intense pressure over this, and it's all driven by the condition that one of his children has. I know that's the only reason my aunts and uncles are bothered by it. Am I an a-hole? In my opinion, OP is not in the wrong at all. OP's grandpa wanted OP and his sister to have his estate. It's very unfair of OP's deadbeat dad to try to fight things to get the money. It appears he only cares about the money, which could be why he came around when there was money he thought he could get. It's OP's father who should have been paying Grandpa child support for OP and his sister all these years. Instead, he abandoned his responsibilities. It's OP's father's responsibility to care for his children. Grandpa was OP's real dad, and he knew that OP and his sister were going to need his money to get their lives started. OP should not give his father a penny. If his siblings think he and his family are deserving, they are welcome to give him some of their own money. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Grandpa knew what he was doing. You said Grandpa knew he had other children, but left his first 2 and drained the bank account and purposely acted in a way not to have any financial responsibility to you, sister, or mom. Grandpa specifically left it to you and your sister. Your deadbeat dad is facing the consequences of his actions now. Not an a-hole. Not an a-hole. Honor your granddad's wishes and keep the money. Do you even know if the child's medical issues are genuine? You owe them nothing. But if you ever want to help, find a way to give directly to the hospital. Never let your dad get his hands on it. Not an a-hole, and if your aunts and uncles are so bothered by it, let them hand over their share of the inheritance. People are very generous with your money, but not their own. Your father made his bed. Your grandfather is making sure he lies in it. Your grandfather wrote his will this way in a very determined manner. Honor his wishes and how he wanted his money to be distributed. Hand over nothing. When my 45 male, daughter, 13 female, was born, I immediately felt that something was obviously amiss. She was blonde-haired and blue-eyed, which was extremely unlikely for a child of myself and my ex-wife, 39 female. I'm very Mediterranean, and I have olive skin, dark eyes, and dark hair. My ex-wife has brown eyes and relatively dark brown hair. Her skin is barely lighter than mine. The baby also clearly bore no resemblance to me or anyone in my family at all. I had been having misgivings about my ex, too, and she seemed too quick to express surprise and make excuses. Still, though, I didn't want to throw away my marriage over what could have been my own misunderstanding of genetics, and so I signed the birth certificate. I instantly knew that I was going to have a paternity test done, But something else surprised me. When I brought our little girl home, I still fell in love with her. It just felt like bringing my son, 14 male, home, and looking at her, I just saw her as an innocent, beautiful little baby. We bonded. The paternity test came back negative, as I suspected it would, and I decided that our marriage was over. I still loved our little girl, though. My then wife did everything that she could to drag out the divorce and refused to separate or move out. My daughter's biological father, every bit as blonde and blue-eyed as I suspected, turned out to want nothing to do with her or my ex. He was already married with his own family, and his only focus was preventing the situation from blowing back on himself too much. My ex went totally nuts when both I and her affair partner rejected her, and she made some very unforgettable decisions. To make a long story short, she ended up with prison time for crimes including identity theft, assault, and grand theft auto. When she stole credit cards and forged documents for both of us, and when she stole her affair partner's car and tried to run him over with it. I ended up with custody of our kids, with the affair partner never even attempting to establish any kind of paternity rights. I didn't want to press the issue myself, as I couldn't deny that I had bonded with this child, even knowing that she wasn't my real daughter. I had been shunning my ex-wife as best I could, and trying to move on with life after she was finally out of the house. It wasn't long before I got together with and married my current wife, 34 female, and we've since had another 2 children, 10 male and 8 female. My eldest daughter is a total daddy's girl, and we have a wonderful relationship. She always feels loved, and I treat her the same as my other kids. Even though she obviously stands out, my family accepts her too, or at least that's what I thought. I work for my father's company, and the other day we were out talking about the future and his will. And he was talking about what money, assets, etc. he wanted to leave to whom, including his grandchildren. And I noticed that my oldest daughter had been left out. I mentioned it to him, and he said, "It's nice what you've done for daughter's name, but you have real children, and obviously they should come first." I interrupted him, and I told him that she is my real daughter, and that I thought she should be treated equally. He just paused and looked at me for a moment, and he said, "I guess you feel how you feel," before he noticed I was still about to argue with him, and he shrugged and moved the conversation on to things about work and my siblings. I was too polite to try to force the matter at the time, but it sort of stuck with me. My father isn't the type of man to harp on a point, and I'm certain that he's content to have said his piece and would let the matter drop. He could certainly tell that what he said upset me, and so I doubted he'd bring it up again. Frankly, he sort of raised me the same way. At the time, I was shocked, because he's always seemed to accept my daughter as a part of the family. He buys her gifts for her birthday and for Christmas, and he makes her feel welcome. But thinking about it, he really is just a kind, polite, and generous man in a lot of ways. He will and has brought Christmas gifts for high school friends and significant others, if he knew they were coming, and the same for other gift-giving occasions. He's generally very hospitable to anyone his friends or family bring around. So I thought that maybe it was just that, and I misinterpreted. My wife is Asian, and so my eldest daughter always stands out. She's thin and blonde and blue-eyed, unlike pretty much anyone else in the family, and she's taller than any of the other girls, or even most of the women really, so I'm aware that she might look like the neighborhood kid visiting or something. My wife loves her, and I know that she 100% accepts her as one of our kids, and she has been a great mom, stepmom. I talk to my own mother though, and while she's definitely closer to my daughter than my father is, they interact a lot more, and she includes my daughter with the other kids, other girls in the family traditions and activities. I got a little bit of the same vibe from her. She was much more diplomatic, but it seems like she also sort of considers my daughter to be sort of a guest, unfortunate orphan I'm hosting or something like that. She pointed out that I can make my own will however I want. My daughter knows that she isn't biologically mine. That would have been hard to hide, even if we'd really had the opportunity. She doesn't want anything to do with either of her bio parents, though. She's seen her bio dad perhaps a handful of times in her entire life, and I don't even think he can remember her middle name. He seems to have pretty successfully kept his family together and his wife from leaving him, but he definitely doesn't want any involvement. My ex-wife continued to spiral for a long while, and she lives in another state with another man and her own new family at this point. She mercifully rarely makes contact. I've never really tried to go after either of them for money. I don't need it, and it's not a pot I want to stir. My siblings are mostly supportive, if a little bit mixed on the issue. Some of them say that they could never raise a child of a partner's affair, but all of them say that they love and accept their niece. I just can't get over the way that I feel distant and upset about what my father said, though. He's an extremely kind and generous man, and he's always taken care of his family. He's given me opportunities and a lifestyle that I could never have achieved without him. I love him, and I look up to him. Maybe that's why I feel sort of, betrayed. It feels wrong that she's the only one of his grandchildren to be left out of his will, apparently because he doesn't consider her a real grandchild. Intellectually, I can accept that he's technically correct, but it feels wrong. She is my daughter. Am I wrong, though? Am I just being entitled and unreasonable here? Am I the a-hole? OP is not in the wrong here. He is legally the parent. He has custody. He's on the birth certificate. This is no different than having an adopted child, other than the circumstances surrounding it personally for OP. They need to treat her equally or step off. It's not legit to treat her as not OP's, knowing it won't hit for her till they're gone, or it'll hurt her. So OP needs to either pull away from them or be ready with immense support when she realizes they didn't think of her the same as her siblings. And OP should really get her to therapy at that point. And now let's hear the community's opinion. I get why members of your family might consider you foolish for raising the result of your ex-wife's affair, but honestly, it speaks well of your character that you treat her as your own. I wonder if your parents would be similarly not accepting if you had adopted a child, because practically, that is what happened. No, you are a saint. Problem is, you're thinking other people will be saints too, and they're not. Their reactions are understandable, but it makes me sad for her when she eventually learns the truth of how they see her. You're not an a-hole. You're a good, solid, loving father. You're the one who loves her, who helps her with homework, who holds her hand when she's happy or sad, who reads bedtime stories, who puts a plaster on her knee and kisses her goodnight. You are her father, and she is your daughter. Personally, I don't think it's entitled to expect people to treat your children equally. If you say she's your child, then she's your child, and anyone who quibbles can quite simply get to duck. Our nephew, son, Charlie, is 2 years old and the product of an affair. My sister Crystal cheated on her husband, and she wanted to get an A, but she left it way too late. It was confirmed she was having a boy, and our sister Angela did not feel right about him being adopted into some unknown family, or spending years in foster care, or being with a mom that did not want him. She was already a mother to 5 girls, 4 female, 6 female, 8 female, and 10 female, and has an amazing job. So Angela adopted Charlie, and it helped that Angela's daughters had been nagging her for a little brother. They were, and still are, head over heels for Charlie when they met him. Crystal moved all the way to the East Coast after that to be with her new man, Dom. They moved back to the West Coast just a month ago. Crystal has been keeping to herself and has been mainly speaking to our parents. Crystal has demanded that Charlie not be at Christmas we normally spend with our parents. They're agreeing to it and told us Charlie can't come at all. They told me they're happy to have her home. Advice, please. The real a-holes here are your parents. They are setting a precedent that your sister is more important than this child. That a child, through no fault of its own, has to be abandoned by his family on Christmas. Your parents should be ashamed of themselves. If I were you, I would coordinate a boycott of Christmas with the other sisters. Plan an alternate Christmas with the 4 of you. Tell your parents that they were wrong and that you will be missing Christmas unless they repair the situation, and that since they've made their choice, they can enjoy their Christmas alone with your crazy sister. Your parents are choosing their horrible daughter over their innocent grandson. If I were you, I wouldn't go over there for Christmas myself. Stand in solidarity with your awesome sister who adopted her nephew. God, what a mess. Sorry.